going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Flying Brian's Garage. So in today's video, we're going to be working on the van again. The last time we worked on the van on the channel, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we put a, I don't think I did a fuel pump on that, on camera. I think we did a tune-up. But I had recently put a used fuel pump in the I'm an idiot. I recently put a used fuel pump in the fuel tank, and it was out of a 2003 Chevy, or 2003 Pontiac Aztek instead of a 2003 Chevy Venture. So the plug was different and the way the pump sat in was different, but otherwise it was the same pump. I put it in and wired up the existing plug that actually went to the Aztek, because I'd cut the wiring harness out of there. So I wired up that plug into my wiring harness and it works. But the fuel pump, the float on the fuel pump was not registering how much fuel was in the tank. When I took it out, lo and behold, it was actually hitting a wall inside of the fuel tank, and it wasn't letting it come all the way up. So I repositioned it, and hopefully we're going to have us a fuel gauge. We're also going to do a few more things because I have a parasitic draw in my electrical system that we need to figure out, and a couple other odds and ends. I also did a little something to it that I'll show y'all. Kind of make it easier for me if I'm traveling. So with all that being said, let's get over here, check the van out, see what we got to do, and get it done. So for this video, we have our tank on the ground right now, and the new pump is already in there and repositioned. I just have to put it back up in there, and then we can actually go ahead and go from there. But what I did when I started is I went ahead and cleaned out the interior, got everything situated and organized. I want to hook up my oil pressure gauge finally, because I have not had that hooked up since I've had them gauges installed. But everything's been cleaned up and straightened. I kind of took some of the tools out that I didn't need and left just mechanics tools. I did come into the back and actually took out some of my shelving that I didn't need, that was for like contractor stuff, and put it in the house and stuff like that. So now I have a sleeping area for when I travel. I can actually sleep in the back of the van if needed. I have electrical ran up here to a little plug here, and then somewhere to plug an extension cord into and run it to like a power source. And I also have a rear 12 volt system. That cabinet right there is sleeping equipment that's just stuffed in there, and I can pull that out when needed. And I have a spot for fishing poles and paddles and stuff for when I take kayaks and stuff of that sort. So it is a one-man sleeping area for myself. And this is just for when I want to travel to far away from the house and end up staying the night, or need to carry something or whatever. It's just I have the extra room. So also what we're going to do is, to carry the kayak, I need to relocate the top light up there to the bottom side somewhere, down here on the bumper, or maybe on my tow receiver hitch down there. I'm not sure, but we will be doing that as well. So unfortunately, in order to stall this tank, I've got my line off that goes from the fuel pump to the fuel filter, so that's my main feed line. It is actually the way the pump is in there. It's actually in there at a little angle. So the front, the return line actually clips on there and it fits, but this line, this needs to be facing like over here, So what I was going to do is cut this off, like somewhere like right in here. And I'm going to install a fuel hose over each end and put hose clamps on it, but I don't want to use this one. So what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to just put this off for tonight until I find me some hose clamps or go to the store and get me some. And we're going to bounce over to relocating the rear light up on top of the van. I got the light removed, and when I put this tow package in, it was made for the Aztec, where it had a cutout right here for the exhaust to go through, but I wanted it to look solid, so I welded a plate on here, which isn't very thick, but is still decently thick enough just to kind of box it in and make it look like an actual tow package, which it does from a distance. And it adds some extra stability just a little bit. But I think what I'm going to do is flip this bracket around to mount to the back, drill a hole, and mount it directly in right there. And then it'll be off to the side on the rear at the bottom. I think it'll look better, be out of the way, and be accessible. With door open, door closed, I will have a light. And that is a big deal, because when I had the door open, it would just reflect on the door, and if I put it on the door with the door open, it would just point up to the sky, and that's no good. So I need to put it here. So let's make that happen. Alright, came down to the shop to use my little key set there, but we got our light bracket turned around. We're going to mount it just like so, and then our cable will run up through the back side of the bracket and up along the receiver hitch. So let's go get this put on, or drilled out and put on, as I should say. So we have our light relocated right there on the bottom of the bumper, or under the bumper, as I should say. It looks good. I drilled a hole as far as I could this way, so it would kind of be close, but it does look good. It's gonna work perfect. I've got my wires ran through the bumper mounts so they won't hang down, and I'm coming up around here. I'm going to take the tail light off here, and we're going to go in through the tail light. I'm going to run the power wire out, butt connector together, run my ground, and then we'll have a light in the rear relocated. Alright, we have our wire ran here, and it runs up through our tail light and all down along here, along the bumper trim, fasten spots, and there's our ground spot. So when we get our battery hooked up, we can test and see if it works. I'm sure it does, but other than that, we're going to go ahead and move on to our oil pressure sensor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here to the other engine and go off of it for a reference point to where I can actually fasten this and which fitting I need to tap into the block. So I think it is this size. So what we're going to do is go ahead and RTV this one into this one. I need to get the line ran through the dash, through the firewall and out here, and then we're going to tap in down there at the oil filter. So let's get that done. Alright, so I RTV'd my threads on that middle one. I know some people thread tape. I'm just going to do a high heat RTV. And I know there's people out there going, that's for exhaust, that's for exhaust. Why in the hell are you using RTV for exhaust, for one? It's called manifold gaskets, donut gaskets. Gaskets, maybe? Not a fucking glue. Silicone, basically. Use that for exhaust. People out your damn minds. I don't use silicone for exhaust. I use gaskets for exhaust. If you got a crack in your manifold or something, weld it. Buy a new one. Don't RTV this shit. But enough of that rant. RTV to threads. We're going to run our line. Let me get flipped around again. We're going to run our line through, like right in there, firewall. You see that little rubber gasket back there on the firewall where I have a few wires ran through. We're going to run our temp sensor line, or pressure sensor line through that, and come down through here. Now I did look while I was down here, and I did see that I actually have, looks like leaky trans lines down here that I need to probably address. So I'm gonna look at that. Maybe they're loose and just need to be tightened. Maybe they're bad and need to be replaced. I'm not sure. I did hook up my block heater again. I do have a block heater in this van, just like a diesel would. It was a northern van, so it came equipped with a block heater, and actually it came equipped with an aftermarket remote start. I just don't have the fob for it, or else I would actually have a remote start on this. But I think the block heater is a pretty cool option, especially for a gas engine and a van at that. But it's got a block heater. It's actually got a few things. It's been upgraded on it when I got it, so I can't complain, seeing that it was a free vehicle. But enough of that. Let's get our line ran, get it up here, start looking at hooking that thing up, and seeing about seeing how much oil pressure this engine actually has. But before we do that, I will say I want to hook it up, but I'm almost kind of scared to. I'm afraid it's going to show me that the oil pressure is shit, and I probably shouldn't run this engine. Am I going to run it? Yes. I'm going to run it until it blows the hell up, but let's cross our fingers and hope at least has 40. Because if it's sitting at 20, I'm going to be like, we have a problem. So, let's hope for the best. Alright, now that we've got our bottom kick plate panel pulled off the dash, which is just a piece of carpeted, like, substance shit, we now have our line. I'm wondering if this is going to be me long enough. Hope. Should. Hope. Sorry, didn't get it on camera. Yeah, I'm hoping that's going to be long enough. I have it ran already up to the top side, but I need to run it to the firewall, which we're going to do that now, so I can reach it outside. Then once I can reach it outside, I can figure out how much of this shit I actually have to work with. There's that engine remote start module that was installed. iPhone switch for it right here, which is on or off, which is, I think, is pretty cool. I'd like to get a remote for it, honestly, and see if it works. Sure, it probably does. I only see it flashing through the dash, so I would imagine it works. So it probably has a separate alarm and unlock the lock buttons and all that jazz. It's pretty cool. But let's go ahead and run this, get it through, and get out there to the outside and get it hooked up. So unfortunately I had the result of pulling the whole dash apart just to find out that that line is just not long enough to go from there that way and then back that way. So I'm moving the gauges over here on my dash, so still got quite a bit of work to do, but I'm getting it relocated. I have to unhook the temperature gauge from the engine so I can bring it through the firewall, put it over here, reroute it, and then reconnect it. And I got to extend my wiring for the unit, so let's get that done and see where we're at then. So I want to take a quick second and pause the video and ask y'all to help me with something. I need y'all to do me a favor. Go down and hit that subscribe button. Smash it. Smash that bell. Go like the videos. You know, tell me where you're from. Say hi. Whatever. Ask me questions. It doesn't matter. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subs. And I cannot do that without your guys' help. So definitely go subscribe, check out the Facebook, the Instagram, the Snapchat, and now we have a TikTok. You can just go type in Flying Brown's Garage and you will find me. All the profile pictures are the same. It's easy to find. And yeah, give me some likes, give me some subscribes, and all that good stuff. I'm trying to build this, and I can't build it without everybody's help. So hope you guys are enjoying the videos. You know, got a lot of good videos coming, constantly coming, and I'm constantly sourcing new projects. So stay tuned, and with that being said, let's get back to the video. Alright, had to remove a few things to get in here to the sensor wire, or the temp gauge wire. I'm going to plug it with the old, and because I just kind of hang the old one over on the engine to let it heat up, that way it don't throw codes in the van. Eventually I'll probably get me a collar to put it somewhere on the hose as a secondary, but if you notice, that little bleeder nipple is messed up, and I actually, well, that didn't work out. I have one in hand, so we're going to replace it. Go ahead and route all this and then get it put back together. I do have the wiring for the gauges and everything ran over here. I ran it up through the dash. Everything is apart to do this, so I mean it's a job, but it's gonna be nice when it's done, and hopefully I have good oil pressure. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and replace this valve. Go ahead and take care of this here. Alright, we finally have our dash put back together, because I don't need to be in there anymore. I have got the stuff out from up here, which I will probably just put some kind of plate here or some kind of box to put stuff in to cover these holes. Holes are no big deal, can always cover them. But we're going to relocate to over here. I'm going to put it in like kind of like this. You know, I'm going to get that bent forward a little bit so it'll bracket the way I want it to, face the way I want it to, and then that will be on there, and I can start running the gauges in and hooking them up once again. Alright, we got our engine bay put back together. I have the coolant temp gauge wire ran, sensor hooked back up. Everything's hooked back up, put back on. The inside of the van is put back together, except for the fuse panel for the interior, which is on the dash there. But I've got the dash put back together, all my switches and panels, the kick panel, all my wiring's neat. Everything's put back together here. I got my switch exposed for my radio. That was on the wiring out of the Aztecs. I'm not quite sure what that's to, but I'm sure I will find out. I just unplugged the old wiring harness and plugged it in here. But my gauges are up here on the dash now. Kind of works out pretty good. And we're about to run our line for our oil pressure sensor and get it hooked up. So after fooling with this line and routing it about 9,000 different ways, I finally have got it to where it's enough to run down here. Alright, so I've been working on this thing for days, and it's been a slow project because, you know, I haven't needed it, so it's been kind of sitting and getting the attention that it needs. But I finally figured out there were so many ports that I thought were oil, and they weren't. They were coolant. So I actually had to drag the other motor out of the shop out there, figure out where it went. But if you see right there on the block, there's an oil passage, and it's right because you see that line running into the oil filter, and there's one running out into the block. That's actually coolant. That is a oil cooler that is ran into the oil filter there. That's the oil pressure sensor itself, and it has to have that or the computer will trip. So all you have to do is go in there and pull this plug out. It threads right in. But I've got it tapped into the block, so I'm actually going to have an oil pressure gauge, and now I'm scared to see how much oil pressure I'm going to have. So with all that being said, let's get all this put back together. At the end of this video, or towards the end, what we are going to do is we're actually going to take and fire this thing up, pull it out in the yard, pull the pressure washer out, and pressure wash this whole entire engine bay with some LA's Totally Awesome concentrate. Spray on, let it sit for a few minutes, and we're going to hose this thing down, get it nice and clean so I can detect where my leaks are coming from and fix them from there. But for now, at least I'll have an oil pressure gauge. Now when I put everything back together, I'm going to have to route it away from the manifold there, but you know, no problem, we can figure that out. But let's get all this put back together, and then we can move on to starting to stab the tank back up into the van. Alright, big difference from earlier. It's probably been an hour or so. Got everything put back together up top. The only thing I've got to do is I've got the starter hanging down there, and I need to put the bolts back in, get it mounted back up, and get the... oh, I need to put one bolt back in one side of the radiator, I forgot. And put the cover back on the starter plate. And then we can move on to our fuel pump. Oh, and the serpentine belt, because this is not going to run without that. Alright, we now successfully, finally, after a couple of days of fighting with this shit, because there is no room in this engine bay, finally got the oil pressure gauge hooked up. I had to tear apart this whole dash, pretty much, relocate all gauges, but it is nice and routed away from the exhaust manifold. Everything's been put back together. The starter is on underneath. I don't know if you can really see it, but it's on. Everything's on. Like I said, we will be pressure washing this engine bay when I get this thing off of, or back down really on the ground and running again, because I like to wash my engine bays while it is running to keep it from messing up anything. I like to keep my engine a little hot, because it'll kind of dissipate, but not too hot, it'll crack something. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get away from this area finally, because I'm about sick of looking at it. It is such a tight space to work in. I mean, I had to remove all of this, that and that, which is your upper motor mounts. I had to remove fans. I had to drop down the AC compressor, which is down there. Had to remove the battery, all of the brackets and braces, and all of this stuff on the side, like the overflow bottle for the radiator, and the cruise control little box that holds it in. I did find out when I tore this apart that this was loose, and actually there was more part of my plug for my block heater was messed up, so I actually had to, I mean, it's butchered, but it's safe in there. It just looks like shit because I'm out of parts and I'm out of butt connectors, and I had to make my own butt connectors, and I had to tape them up so they don't ground and all that stuff. I'm out of money, so having to do with what I got, but I'm getting it fixed. But luckily I'll be able to use my block heater again, especially when it gets really, really cold. We're going to find out where the leak is under here when I get it pressure washed, but enough of blabbering. Let's get back over here to the tank and the fuel pump situation. Let's get that line figured out so we can go ahead and put it back together. Get that tank back up in the van, and then we can go and put some gas in it, fire this thing up, see how all my gauges work, because I'm excited to see if everything works. Alright, so I've got a little bit done here. Actually came under here, and the old muffler guard and everything that was in here that was in my way I took out. I'm actually thinking about, since I'm under here, this thing's looking ratty. This is what I did years ago when I cut the muffler off. That's a coat hanger and conduit strap. Yeah, it's pretty janky, but it has worked for the years. I'm thinking about dumping it out the side here instead. I went across, my rocker panels are shit, but I did finally straighten out the lip going down Round on both sides. The other side's worse. I'm going to end up having to come in and do these at some point. Pretty shitty. I mean, look at this. You can tell somebody's been back here before and made a repair. But then you got all that, which is just pure rust. Like, all that's rusted. You can see the flecks in it. Like, it's sad to say that my shittier van is actually the one in better shape. That thing has no rust. Rockers are in great shape. The thing's in pretty good shape for what it is. This one's the one that's all rusty and just janky. I did come back here and bend out a lot of my stuff. Like, my mounts here were bent in and out all over, so I went ahead and bent them back together, cleaned it all up. And I also got our fuel line cut and prepped and ready to fit together. The other end is already under there and ready to go on. I'm actually about to go out and get some exhaust pipe out of the shop and come in here before it gets too late, start cutting and getting a dump out the side. I want it to dump out like right in here. So let's make that happen. So I found my piece of pipe to join onto my exhaust, and all I gotta do is snip it, and that'll fall off. Snip this off, and then that'll be the part that I weld onto the existing exhaust. I am not going to undo any of this because it just happens to equal it perfectly to come out, and I just don't want to mess with it. So all that's kind of rusted and it's going to be shit, and I'll have to replace it at some point anyway. So this is a temporary dump out the side type of deal. So I'm going to go ahead and chop this up, get it ready, get the welder out, and start tacking this in place. Alright, so we have our exhaust tied in to here, and it is tacked up there. I took a break, and I'm about to go ahead and finish that weld now. It is getting late, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it for the night after I finish this weld and get this secure, and then I will come back out here tomorrow. We will have nothing but the tank to do. Once we get it done, we can fire this thing up, see how it runs, all that good stuff, and then we can start worrying about where our parasitic draw is coming from, get that situation addressed, and then we should be done and on to pressure washing this thing, getting it clean, and hitting the road. Alright, welds ain't pretty. There's my homemade dump out the side exhaust instead of dump out the bottom. So probably change the tone a little bit, probably not much, but just a little bit, but I like the look of it. Alright, so we're just going to go over real quick why I did this fuel pump. And here is the old pump. Because this pump actually worked, and it worked good, but I didn't have a gas gauge forever, okay? And I looked up a lot of problems and scenarios in these 2003 Chevrolets, and not just my van, Impalas, which is the car, trucks. This is considered a GMT 400. No, I think it's a GMT 200. And then you got the 400, the 600, the 800, which are the trucks and stuff like that. But usually they had said that what happens is the motors go bad on the back of the clusters, which started to make sense to me, because the whole reason I have a manual temperature gauge is because I can't trust this digital one anymore, which, I mean, technically it is digital because it runs off a computer, even though it's an analog. It's digitally operated through a computer and a sensor, so I still consider that digital, even though it's an analog reading. And what it does is it likes to go haywire. And since I got this van, it had a bad head gasket, and I've rebuilt this engine twice, so I kind of, you know, in this vehicle, I'm paranoid of overheating. And this thing used to fluctuate bad. I mean, it would just jump and then jump. So I knew there was something wrong with this one, so I automatically thought, well, that must be what's wrong with my gas gauge. Wrong. So I'll show you here. On this fuel pump here, this is the design fuel pump for this 2003 Chevy Venture van. Now, the Pontiac Aztec fuel pump is the exact same fuel pump, except this part is positioned different with this part. So this part actually faces a different way. And what that does is, in the Aztec tank is actually a little bit different. And there's little like dimples inside of the bottom of the tank, and they're actually walls inside of the tank. And if the float hits, it ain't gonna work. So the first time I had put this fuel pump in, it works and everything. The only difference is like I said, the positioning of the fuel pump itself. But the fuel pump itself is designed the same fittings, same everything, except for the main power plug. It's still a full wire and still the same color coding wires, but it's a different shaped plug. So what I had done when I had took the Pontiac Aztec fuel pump and tank out, I had just cut the wiring, so I still had the wire heads. I actually wired the Aztec plug fitting onto my van's wiring harness, and it works great. I just had to reposition the pump in the tank because my float was hitting the wall inside of the tank. And that's the whole reason for cutting the line there and rerouting it, because those lines are supposed to be facing straight out here, like straight out this way, but instead they're kind of facing this way a little bit. And it didn't bind the return line, but it did bind the main line for the fuel running into the injector system. So I had to cut the line and put a flex fuel hose on it and clamp the ends, which that should work. But here's the problem that these pumps have. If you see in here, let me get y'all focused. Alright, I need more light. If y'all see in here, there we go. Y'all see those two tabs? Well, those two tabs are electrodes, or they're conductors, as I guess you would say. They're supposed to conduct an energy through those. I think it jumps from this one to this one. and it's supposed to connect with this board here, down here, and as it comes up, it digitally sends your reading to your fuel gauge. And if you see those, they are wore out, and that's why I wasn't getting a reading on my fuel gauge. So the pump out of the Aztec, when I had got it, the transmission was bad in that vehicle. Everything else was good. I have the engine from it, which is plug and play for this van. It's the same exact engine, and it's got 130,000 miles on it. The pump was brand new when everything was put back together on that vehicle and fixed, and they ended up blowing the transmission. So I got a hold of the vehicle, decided since it was a Versatrack and it's not a very desired vehicle, I parted it out since I needed parts for a Malibu I had at the time, which is the same drivetrain, this van, all that good stuff, and ended up putting the fuel pump in this van. So hopefully now we will have a fuel gauge and everything should work properly. So what we're going to do now, since all the lines are hooked up, tank and everything is hooked up completely except for the filler neck and the vent tube, we're going to go ahead and stab this thing up in the van, get her hooked up, get the straps on it, fill this thing up with about 7 to 10 gallons of gas, and see what my fuel reading is. Alright, good news is, after some fighting, the fuel tank is back in. When I dropped it, I didn't realize how much gas was in it because I don't have a gas gauge. It was damn near full. It was really hard to get down, but I emptied the tank, and I emptied it into, I only have 2 5-gallon gas cans, so what I did is I kept emptying it, and the town car was empty. So what I did was I put half of it, or 3/4 of it in the town car, which gave it almost 3/4 of a tank, and then I just saved about 10 gallons to put back in the fan. I got the battery hooked up. You can hear that fuel pump hit. It's showing that she's empty, and that's good because it is empty. It looks like all my power's coming on up here. I'm gonna kick it over and see how much oil pressure we have. Nothing. Let's see what we got. I think we got a fuel gauge. Heck yeah. Got a runner. We're building oil pressure. Building. Now I'm just going to let this sit here and run for a little bit and check for leaks, stuff like that, make sure it's good to go and good for me to drop down and pull out of here. Yeah, it don't sound any different, but my exhaust is dumping out the side. works. So let's let her run, monitor it, make sure she's good to go. Alright, she's been running for about 15 minutes. Everything seems to be looking pretty good. I mean, it's wet and existing, but I don't see any new leaks so far. Sounds like the squeak has kind of got out of there. I guess that was put the belt back on. Might have got a little antifreeze on it, I'm not sure. My hands were nasty. You know, I still need to kind of bleed the cooling system a little bit. So I'll probably do that here in just a second. Just take a peek up under it. I don't see a leak, except for what was there. So as you see, I have broken tail lights, but they're only broken at the bottom. Now I don't want to get pulled over for this. There's no light down here, but you know how cops are. If you get one that just wants to be a hard time, they'll pull you over for that. I don't want to be tacky and tape this up with red tape and all that shit, because it just don't look good, it don't match. So what I opted on doing is actually taking my multi-tool here, this little guy right here, which I do love. That is a great tool. And I came in here and just trimmed out the bottom of the tail light. So when you're back here at a distance, you got that. And you got broken. Alright, I got them both done. Really, it's not preferred, but it's not bad. It is way better than what it was, and it's better than taping them. It's got a lot of black trim on the van, so it just kind of looks like trim, unless you put it up next to another van and it looks different. And I don't think people are going to really notice too much unless you're an automotive person, you have one of these, or you just really look at it and pay attention. So alright, so we're still missing headlights, but we're going to go ahead and take this thing down in the yard, get the pressure washer out, clean this thing up, and get it looking good. Alright, let's get this thing moved down in the yard. Well, typical GM gas gauge, it's fluctuating, but I mean, I did see a sign of life in it earlier where it raised up to 1/4 of a tank, so that means that the float's working, and I got some oil pressure, so happy with that. Alright, we have pressure washed our van. Really nice. Get engine. How clean it is. Nice and clean. Sorry about the, got a little bit of moisture on my camera there for sticking it under the fan. We got under the hood, nice and clean. Everything is clean. I even cleaned part of the frame over here. All that good stuff. Tank. I mean, it's cleaner than it's ever been. So I'm actually going to go ahead and wash this thing, hand wash it, and then we will pull it back up in the shop, and I will try to fix my lights. Alright, we got a nice and clean hand washed 2003 Chevy van. I think it's cleaner than I've ever had it since I've had it, and I've had it about 6 to 7 years. It looks really good. Alright, another day on the van. So last night we cleaned this thing up, and boy is it looking good. We've got to fix these headlights. They dried like shit. They just don't look good. So we're gonna have to do something about that. I'm actually going to end up running up to the parts store up here in town. It's actually the parts store we have our car show. And what I'm gonna do is try to get a headlight restoration kit and see if I can fix them. And hopefully we can. So there's something else I needed to get, but I can't think of it right at the moment. But I'm sure I'll think of it when we get there. I'm also probably going to go by and scoop me up some breakfast. So since the van don't have any headlights, we got to take the town car, and the town car has a bad battery in it. So fingers crossed that I can make it in the old town car. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready to get moving and get out of here. So we're back from the parts store. Got a few goodies for the van, and before we get to this, unfortunately I have a small dilemma. Something told me to park the town car back to where I had it, but didn't, and the battery's dead. And now the battery I had that was my lawnmower battery that I've been switching around is a little too dead to kick this big old engine over. So I'm gonna have to crank the van and hook it up to the van real quick and let the alternator to the van charge that battery, and then I will come back, bring it over here, jump the car off, move it, and all that good stuff. If not, we have our backup plan, which is the old workhorse tow rig. We will actually, if we need to, we'll pull the town car back with it. That way I can get my van backed up, turned around, and I can jump it off, and then we can put it back in its spot. So I'm going to get that done real quick, and then we'll get back to this scenario here. So here are our goodies that we got for the van. We got some 320 grit sanding sheet. It's not really paper, it's like a fiber cloth actually. We got some headlight lens restore, which was one of their cheapest packs that they had, with the sanding sponge and the lubricant and the compound and all the good stuff. We also got some of their cheap octane booster just to run through the fuel system, since we just did it, and kind of, you know, clean anything out from in there. And plus the engine just runs better on higher octane. Also got some of their cheapest Lucas engine oil stop leak. And hopefully that'll give me a little more oil pressure, and you know, maybe quiet down the engine a little bit from the lifter noise, and hopefully it won't leak as bad, because it said leaking engines are usually older Lucas engine oil stop leak is not only a leak stopper but also an additive for worn engines. The user can expect less engine noise, higher oil pressure, and less oil consumption as the Lucas additive fills the space between the worn parts. So what we need, let's rebuild it. First things first, our octane booster. Let's drink on that, little buddy. Let's check our oil. See what we're looking like for oil. Just wipe that on the pants there. Because pants are rags too. Just gotta use your imagination. She's already severely overfilled, so that's great. I might wait to put that in. Let her leak out a little bit, you know. That way it gives me some room to put that in there. So we'll just run it until it's low and then add some oil. Well, now that we've confirmed that our oil is severely overfilled and we got our octane booster in the tank, let's fire this baby up today. See how she's going to run for us. This thing did have a problem with starting before. Used to I'd have to kick it over 2 or 3 times, but it seems like I might have solved that problem. I don't know. We're going to find out. Still got about 12 volts on the battery. So, let's do it. Okay. There we go. Immediately at about 30 pounds of oil pressure and rising. Alternator is charging. Temperature, of course, isn't registering yet because I just fired it up. Gas gauge is still showing that I have a little bit of gas. That's good because it showed more than that the other day, and what I mean is that's changed, so that's good. That means my fuel pump is giving me an accurate reading of my fuel gauge. Anything's better than what the hell I had, because I didn't have anything. Alright, she's up to temp. Still holding oil pressure. It's not good. I'm not going to sit here and say it's good oil pressure. It's pretty shitty. But it's better than nothing. Alright, we got our car moved. Onto the headlights. Bring back glass headlights. This shit sucks. I was actually able to get this headlight partially stripped down, so let's see if we can do something with this headlight restore kit and if it'll work. If not, I probably won't even mess with the other one, but we're going to try this one and see if we can get it a little clearer. Even if it's just good enough for until I get a better set, you know, it's worth it. It's better than none. It's better than having to buy some right now. It's about $80 to $100 for a set. So let's see if this works. You know, for something that I had spray painted, that ain't bad results. I haven't even put on the base coat wipe or the sealing lens wipe. I just buffed it out with the lubricant and the pads 1 through 4 and then the lens clarifying compound which you see right there. And y'all saw what this was before, so I mean it's really not bad. I've never got this good of results, especially since I spray painted it first and then had to get the paint off of it with 320 grit. 320 grit's the key. Honestly, I mean, you still see some marks in there, but follow along with the kit and it really knocks it out. I haven't even hit this with the kit yet. All I did was sand it, and to get the I know everybody's gonna be like, what in the hell, but this cloth 320, you can wet sand with gasoline. And I actually sanded the clear coating off with gasoline and 320. It came off pretty easy. I mean, not too hard, but I just went over it with some Goo Gone to make sure all of the residue and everything is off of it, and then I will wipe it down with gas again and let it dry, and then we will do the kit. Alright, you know, from before, and then I painted them, and then now those are usable, and I haven't even done the coats yet. So let's do these and then really see what they're gonna look like. Alright, for the reveal, there's my headlights. Not the best looking set of headlights in the world, but you know what? Look at that, that's usable. Usable. Alright, we're about to take a trip in this thing, see how it does. I'm gonna go hit the gas station and see if I actually do have a gas gauge, or is that just fooling me. See about our oil pressure. We're going down the road and get a little bit of vacuum line from the auto parts store to fix a vacuum leak, so let's do it. Oil pressure's about 40 with my foot in it, close to 50, not too bad. Gas gauge is climbing, it's fluctuating, it's doing what a GM gas gauge does, so that's good signs. We're gonna head to the gas station first and see about getting some gas and see if it actually makes that needle budge. Just put 9 gallons in it and it is registering, so looks like I got a fuel gauge again. All gauges are working, so let's get to the parts store, get our vacuum line, get back to the shop, get it fixed, and this thing should be done. Alright, made it up here at the parts store. Van's still running good, gas is still registering, still got oil pressure, so we're off to a good start. Let's get in there and get our parts. Alright guys, it is the next day, and good news is the van is fixed. It's like a brand new vehicle. I left the battery hooked up last night and left the lock system, which I had that problem with my locks unlocking themselves, but I left my battery hooked up last night and I left my lock system hooked up and locked it. It did not unlock itself this morning like it had usually done, and it also did not drain the battery. I had the exact amount of volts on it this morning, fired it up, runs great. No hesitation in the starting. Has a fuel gauge, has temperature, voltage, oil pressure, speedometer, everything's working. Our headlights are still looking freaking awesome, and I cannot believe I was able to bring those back, but I was. We washed it and cleaned it and did the fuel tank and the fuel pump. I also washed out my air cleaner last night. The only thing I have left to do here is this debauchery here. I'm pretty sure this is where my leak's coming from. So I went to the parts store last night, got some vacuum line, and I got a new sensor to put in down here. We're going to replace all that real quick, but I'm going to do that off camera. It's just a little job. So with that being said, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed getting my van back to life again, because I had neglected these maintenance fixes for some time now. I've been riding without a gas gauge and without a lot of things, and she was just barely hanging on, but I think she's gonna hang on for a little longer now. She also looks good too, so that's the key. Looks good, operates good, it's clean and functional. So, but everything's working and I'm happy with it. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Go down there and leave it a like. Comment down below if you have anything to say, any questions, anything like that. I welcome comments. You can check out the Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat. As I say in all the videos, the only one that's different is Snapchat. It has the avatar, but the other profiles are the same exact profile picture as the YouTube channel. So you can easily type in Flying Brian's Garage, and as soon as you see that logo, that's me. So, you know, stay tuned for more videos, and go back and check out some of the old ones. We got a lot of the good ones back there and a lot of good ones to come. I'll be rolling in the town car next. So, and we're also working on the General Lee. We've got part 4 to come out for the transaxle, and finishing that up. We have the transaxle on the Deer I gotta fix and get it back on the trails. And I also think I'm going to part this out and build something new with the parts off of it. So, you know, comment down below what you think I should do with this. It does have a bad transaxle or transmission, and I cannot find a shift collar for it, and I cannot afford a trans for it. So we're going to do something else on a different frame. But if you have an idea, comment down below. I welcome all ideas, and I will take them and do with them as I need. So another good look at the van real quick, and I will see you guys on the next episode.